Hey guys, True Grit Scott, Bulletproof Saws and BlueSaws.com. Hope everybody's doing all right. A little bit of rain got my stupid little rags wet. Set them out to dry. So you guys see I've been playing around with the Neo 8120 quite a bit and having fun with it. I like the saw. And yesterday I noticed that the oiler wasn't doing its job, or doing its job very little. I wound up cutting some bigger rotted pieces of maple just to make them a little bit easier for me to move where they were. And I wound up hitting metal. So I popped the chain off, and now I got it in this creamer jug with some gasoline in it. And I'll throw a chain in there and throw some gasoline in there. Actually, I keep gasoline in there, and I'll shake it up for a while, get all the oil and crud off of it. Although for the oiler failing on me at some point, that chain wasn't bad. And I know I've told you guys in a bunch of videos, you know your saw is generally oiling well enough if the sides of your chain, the tie straps, don't have a bunch of pitch and junk built up on the sides. If the chain's staying clean, chances are it's oiling. This chain was relatively clean, so I don't know if the oiler had just gone out, made a few. I know I made at least 2 cuts with it where I was questioning the oiler. And the thing that I noticed is I'm hitting the manual oiler, and at first when I was hitting the manual oiler, I'd get oil dripping down the bar. I mean, it was oiling, and now I'm hitting it and not getting anything. I'm like, all right, well, maybe the manual oiler's not working. Maybe the automatic oiler's still working. Sure enough, neither of them. I ran the saw. I'll run it again real quick. Neither of them were working at all. So I was kind of surprised that chain stayed as clean as it was. So I'll rinse it off in gasoline. I'll hold it. I'll blow it off with the air, and I'm actually going to put this on the grinder now and grind it, because again, I know I hit metal, and it was odd because those were, I don't know, they're sizable pieces of maple that have just been, they were rotted when I got them, and if I would have got right into them, I might have had some salvage out of them. But I let them sit for a few more years because I had other maple sitting, and you forget about logs. But what was odd about them is, for such a big piece of maple, there was nails, well, it looks like nails, dead center of this thing. That tree had to be this big when somebody put a bunch of nails in it. And it was, I saw at least 3 on a quick look. I don't know if one of them was a wider square nail, because it was kind of a flat, maybe 2 fingers wide, and then there was a couple round nails. So I'm going to wash this chain off, put it on the grinder. Probably could use to be trued up anyway. I have a couple other 52-inch chains ready, and they're all modified chains. Some of them were oddball skip patterns I was playing with, where you had 2 cutters, then a couple skips, then 2 cutters, like a right and a left. And I guess I should play with them, because I don't really remember how they work. I know having, taking a full comp chain, removing 2 cutters, having the left cutter, removing 2 cutters, having the right one, was working absolutely wonderful. It's a little more than a regular skip, a lot less than a hyper skip. I don't see with the 3120, even with the 72-inch bar, I wouldn't need a hyper skip. Where I get real interested in hyper skip is if and I know a lot of guys are running, I got guys who've gotten saws from me, and they're running 72-inch bars occasionally, and they're using regular full house chain, which is crazy to me. That's where I think hyper skip would be wonderful, because if you're really burying a 72-inch bar, that hyper skip's going to take a lot of load off of the saw, and it's not going to slow you down that much. I know everybody wants more cutters is better, but that skip in those chains isn't bad. Where I don't like skipping chains is if I'm bucking up a lot of wood, sometimes that, or even felling trees, sometimes that skip on smaller saws, they're plenty powerful. I don't need a skip chain. The only reason I'm going for a skip chain is because it saves me time sharpening cutters. So there's that, and I do love that part of it, because the less sharpening the better, but it may not cut as smoothly, may not go into the wood as smooth, has a little more feedback during the cut that you might not like. So that's a reason not to use skip. Other than that, to me, less cutters is better. And even this chain, hand filing it, because it's missing so many cutters, it's a lot. You go through sharpening it super quick, which is nice, and it cuts wonderfully. So it's one of those things. I also find if I really damage a chain, I hit a railroad spike, I hit a pipe in a piece of wood, something that really hurts the chain, I'll take a hard look at that chain sometimes and say, you know what, these cutters are wiped. I mean, they're half destroyed. Like, instead of having a full cutter, it's destroyed to the point where now I only have, you know, half a cutter left. But some of the other cutters are mint. They're you know, 90% there. What I'll do on those a lot of times is I'll try to lay it out on the chain and cut off the bad cut. And you can't just randomly remove cutters. It has to, you know, you need a right, a left, and they have to go in order. Doesn't have to be perfect in order. If you had 2 lefts, then a right, then a left, then a right, it'll work. But you don't want to have 10 right cutters in a row and then left, right. It's going to throw off your cuts. And I'm exaggerating there with how far you could go with that. I honestly don't know how many. I know if I go for 3 of the same cutter in the row, that's probably the max that I would do. So what I'll do is I'll take that chain and try to see if I could remove those bad cutters, make it some kind of skip, just to try to keep the best cutters on the chain. The other reason for that is hand filing, it doesn't matter. You can have a short cutter, a long cutter, a medium cutter, in any configuration. Doesn't matter when you're hand filing and you're matching your rakers to the cutter. That removes length of cutters being a problem. But if you ever want to go back to your grinder, it becomes a pain in the ass when you have all different size cutters. You have to readjust the grinder every time. So it's nice to try to keep them about the same length. And you really never have to use the grinder. The grinder gets used if I hit metal and I really have to do work on a chain. The grinder becomes kind of nice at that point. You don't ever have to use it, and it's a personal preference. A lot of the time I hand file, but lately I've been taking chains off of bars. They've been sitting around and I just grab them and throw them on the grinder instead of mounting them back on a saw, locking the saw in a vise, and then hand filing. But generally when I'm working and I'm not taking a bar off of a saw, I'll just hand file everything, and I don't mind doing it. I'm pretty proficient with it. Take that for what it is. You guys will have to trust me that this isn't oiling, because I don't think it makes any sense for me to just start the saw, rev it up, and try to show you that it's not oiling. It's not oiling. I'll rip the clutch off, pull the oiler out, and see. It almost seems like a hose might have disconnected, but I'm not that familiar with the saw and how it's totally configured. It's a saw. They're all generally the same. But I'll figure out why we're not oiling. Maybe the oiler shit the bed. Maybe the worm. I don't know. So I'm going to ask around if this is a common problem. Just because I honestly really know nothing about the 3120s at this point. And nothing about the Neotech version of it. Except I've ran it and I've enjoyed it. I think that was a video. I just wanted to talk about washing a chain. That should be relatively clean. I'll fish it out of there and get it blown off and throw it on the grinder and see what I got. Anyhow, guys, True Grit Scott, Bulletproof Saws and BlueSaws.com. Thanks for watching. Stay safe and get some work done.